When Ava was born, she looked different from the other babies. While most babies had soft, smooth faces, Ava was born with tiny, light beards on her cheeks and chin. Her parents were shocked at first, but they quickly fell in love with their unique baby girl. Her mother, Emma, kissed her forehead and said, "You are perfect, Ava, just the way you are." Her father, Ben, smiled and promised, "We'll love you no matter what." As Ava grew, the tiny beards on her face became more noticeable. Her family never made her feel strange or out of place. They always made sure she knew that she was loved. By the time Ava was 4, she had learned to talk, and she loved telling stories. She would sit on the floor and play with her dolls, telling them all sorts of adventures. "You can be anything you want," she told them. "You can be a princess or a superhero, or even a queen with a beard." She giggled, thinking how funny it would be if a princess had a beard. But other children at the park were not so kind. They stared at her and whispered things like, "She looks weird," or "Why does she have a beard like a grown-up man?" Ava didn't understand. She would ask her mom, "Why do they say that, Mama?" Emma would always hug her and say, "People are sometimes afraid of things they don't understand. But we know you're beautiful just the way you are." Still, Ava felt sad and often wondered why she was different from the other kids. Every day she faced cruel words. Yet Ava never became mean. She stayed kind and always tried to help others, even the ones who made fun of her. The day Ava stepped into high school, she felt a knot in her stomach. She was excited but also afraid. High school was bigger, with more students who didn't know her. The first day, when Ava walked into the cafeteria, she could feel eyes on her. Some of the students whispered behind their hands, pointing at her. "Look at her," one of the boys said, laughing. "She's got a beard." Ava tried to ignore them, but it was hard. She had hoped high school would be different, that maybe she would finally find a place where she belonged. But it seemed like the teasing had followed her. Every day at lunch, Ava sat alone at a table in the corner of the cafeteria. She didn't want to sit with the students who laughed at her, so she kept to herself. Even though she was surrounded by so many people, she felt more alone than ever. One afternoon, Ava sat quietly, eating her sandwich, when a voice interrupted her thoughts. "Hi, can I sit here?" Ava looked up to see a girl with bright red hair and glasses. She smiled shyly. "I'm Mia." Ava smiled back, feeling a spark of hope. "Of course, Mia. I'm Ava." Mia became Ava's first real high school friend. Unlike the other kids, Mia didn't care about Ava's beards. She liked her for who she was. They started talking every day, and Mia introduced Ava to some of her friends. Slowly, Ava started to feel a little more comfortable at school. But even though she had a friend now, the bullying didn't stop. One day, after a group of students made fun of her again, Mia stood up to them. "Hey, stop it. Why don't you leave her alone?" she said firmly. The students were surprised and walked away, muttering. Ava looked at Mia in awe. "Thank you," she whispered. Mia smiled. "You're my friend, and I'll always stand up for you." One afternoon, during art class, Ava sat with her sketchbook, drawing a picture of a girl with a crown. The girl had beards, just like Ava. She thought maybe one day people would see her for who she really was, kind, creative, and strong. Ava had always been smart, but now that she was in high school, her brilliance really stood out. During class, Ava would answer difficult questions that no one else knew. The whole class stared at her, impressed. One morning, the principal made an announcement. "We have a new student joining us today. Please welcome Ryan." Ava turned her head to look. A tall, handsome boy with dark hair walked into the classroom and had a confident smile. All the girls in the class whispered to each other, their eyes glued to him. Mia nudged Ava. "He's so cute, right?" she said with a grin. Ava felt a flutter in her chest, but quickly pushed it away. Ryan sat in the front row, and Ava noticed how the other girls always tried to talk to him. He seemed nice, but he didn't seem to notice the girls around him. He was focused on his work, just like Ava. The next day, Ryan was sitting alone in the cafeteria. Ava was about to sit at her usual table when she saw him looking lost. She knew what it felt like to be alone. With a deep breath, she walked over. "Hey, Ryan," she said quietly. "Can I sit with you?" Ryan looked up, his eyes warm. Sure, I was actually hoping someone would come sit with me. Ava smiled, feeling a little more comfortable. As they ate lunch together, Ryan talked about his old school, and Ava shared a few things about her own. They quickly became friends, and Ava realized that he wasn't just handsome. He was also kind and funny. The group of students who had been bullying Ava started to notice that she was talking to Ryan. They weren't happy about it. What does she think she's doing? Jake muttered, watching from across the room. Ryan doesn't belong with her, another girl whispered. She's weird. No one wants to be friends with her. Ava tried to ignore them, but she could feel their eyes on her. Ryan didn't seem to mind, though. He kept talking to her like she was just another person, not the girl with beards. One afternoon after school, Jake and his friends tried to corner Ava outside. "What's the deal with you and Ryan?" Jake asked, sneering. "He's way too good for you." Ava looked at them, her heart pounding. "I'm just a friend to him," she said calmly. Ryan suddenly appeared, standing next to Ava. "Is there a problem here?" he asked with a serious tone. Jake and his friends backed off, clearly surprised that Ryan was standing up for Ava. Ava felt a small smile tug at her lips. Over the next month, Ava's friendship with Ryan grew stronger. They spent hours talking about books, movies, and their dreams for the future. The more time they spent together, the more Ava realized how much she liked him. One day, during class, Ryan leaned over to Ava. "You're the smartest person in this class, Ava," he whispered. "I don't know how you do it." Ava giggled softly. "I just study a lot, I guess." Ryan smiled at her, and for a moment, Ava could see something in his eyes, something more than just friendship. But before she could think about it too much, the bell rang, and they both stood up to go to their next classes. Later that evening, as Ava sat with her family, her mom looked at her and smiled. "You seem happy, Ava. What's going on?" Ava blushed, feeling a little shy. "I think I'm starting to like someone." Her dad raised an eyebrow. "Really? Who?" Ava hesitated before answering. "His name is Ryan. He's new at school." Emma smiled warmly. "I'm so happy you found someone who makes you happy." One day, as Ava was walking to her locker, Ryan stopped her. "Hey, Ava," he said, glancing at her with a smile. "I was wondering, would you like to go to the school dance with me?" Ava's heart raced. "The dance?" she asked, feeling a mix of excitement and confusion. Before she could say anything, Ryan added, "I really like you, Ava. I'd love to go with you, Ryan." The night of the dance arrived, and Ava was both nervous and excited. She had spent hours getting ready, and when she finally saw Ryan at the dance, her heart skipped a beat. He looked handsome, dressed in a sharp suit. "Wow, Ava," Ryan said, looking at her. "You look amazing." Ava smiled shyly. As the dance continued, Ava couldn't help but feel like she was in a dream. Ryan twirled her on the dance floor, laughing and smiling. The dance was in full swing, with music and lights filling the gym. Ava was laughing with Ryan when she noticed something odd. Ryan's purse, which he had set on the table beside them, slipped off and hit the floor with a soft thud. "Oops," Ava said, bending down to pick it up. But just as she was about to, a girl from across the room, Sarah, rushed over and grabbed the purse first. Inside, she saw a photo of Ryan's family. She gasped when she recognized Ryan's dad from the picture. "Wait a minute," Sarah whispered, her eyes wide. "That's Ryan's dad. He's super famous and rich. He owns half the city." Sarah quickly took the photo and showed it to her friends, who were standing nearby. "You won't believe what I just found," she said, grinning. "Ryan's family is loaded, and he's hanging out with Ava." The other girls were angry. They had always wanted Ryan to notice them, but now it seemed like he liked Ava. "We have to do something about this," one of the girls said. "He can't just like her. We'll make sure they don't stay friends." One afternoon, they approached John, a boy who was known to be friendly with everyone. They wanted him to be their pawn in their cruel scheme. "John, we need you to do something for us," Emily said with a grin. John looked at her cautiously. "What do you need me to do?" Sarah added, "We want you to befriend Ava, make her trust you. Then, get her to come to your party. Once she's there, we'll make sure she's too drunk to remember what happens. And everyone will see what kind of person she really is." John hesitated, but the idea of gaining favor with Emily and Sarah seemed tempting. All right, I'll do it. The next day, John approached Ava in the assembly hall, where she was sitting alone. Hey, Ava, he said, smiling. I've been meaning to talk to you. You seem really nice. I'd love for us to be friends. Ava's face lit up, her heart skipping a beat. Really? You want to be my friend? I'd love that. John smiled. Great. Let's hang out sometime. I have a party at my place this weekend. You should come. Ava didn't hesitate. I'd love to come. Thanks for inviting me. Meanwhile, Ryan, who secretly admired Ava, noticed them talking. At first, he didn't think much of it, but as the conversation went on, he saw how comfortable Ava was with John. She laughed at his jokes and seemed so happy. He was kind of jealous. Ryan walked over, trying to stay casual. Hey, Ava. Oh, hi, Ryan. Ava greeted, turning to him with a smile. John stood up to leave. Don't forget to come to the party, okay? Ryan's curiosity got the best of him. Come to what party? Ava looked at him with excitement. John invited me to his birthday party at his house. Ryan's stomach dropped. Are you sure you want to go? I don't know if that's a good idea. Ava raised an eyebrow. Why? It'll be fun. I want to go. Ryan didn't know how to respond. Well, okay, just be careful. Certainly. Sarah adjusted her school shirt and walked over to Ryan's desk. She was trying to start a conversation and seduce him, hoping to get him to notice her, but he seemed uninterested. Frustrated, she decided to bring up something she knew would provoke him. Have you noticed how Ava looks more masculine? How can a girl have facial hair like that? She's just pretending to be a girl, Sarah said, her tone mocking. I don't know what you see in her. That you keep talking to her. She is ugly and dirty. Ryan finally looked up at Sarah, his expression turning angry. How dare you talk about her like that? He replied, his voice sharp. Ava is 10 times better than you, and you know it. You are just jealous of her. Don't ever talk about her like that. Ever in front of me, he said angrily. Sarah's face reddened with rage. She spun around to walk away, but as she did, she thought to herself, you'll soon learn what kind of person she really is. She gave a bad smile. The night of John's party, Ava was filled with nervous excitement. She arrived and immediately felt out of place. There were so many people she didn't know, but John greeted her with a friendly smile. Hey, Ava. I'm so glad you came, John said. Here, have a drink. It'll help you relax. Ava hesitated. I don't usually drink. John waved it off. Come on, just one drink. You'll have fun, I promise. Ava was unsure, but she didn't want to feel like an outsider. She took a sip and later drank the full glass. Soon, she started feeling dizzy. The room began spinning, and she tried to hold herself up, but everything around her blurred. Before she could stop herself, she fell into John's arms, losing consciousness. John looked down at her with a twisted smile. He had succeeded in his plan. The next morning, Ava woke up in a strange room. She was disoriented, and when she looked around, she realized she was in John's bed. Panic set in as she noticed her clothes were missing, and she couldn't remember what had happened the night before. What happened? Ava whispered to herself, feeling an overwhelming sense of dread. She didn't know that John had taken pictures of her while she slept. The next day, Sarah quickly approached Ryan with her phone in hand, showing him the photos. Ryan's heart sank when he saw the pictures of Ava, unconscious in John's bed. What is this? He asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Sarah smirked. Looks like Ava's been hiding a lot more than we thought. Ryan was too stunned to respond. His mind raced as he processed what he was seeing. This can't be real, he muttered, shaking his head. When Ava walked into the classroom, the other students began whispering louder. Some laughed behind their hands, while others stared at her with judgmental eyes. Ryan stood up and confronted Ava. Is this true? He asked, holding up his phone to show her the pictures. Ava's face turned pale as she saw the images. Ryan, I didn't know what happened. I was drugged at the party. I didn't even know I was in his bed. Ryan's eyes flashed with anger. I told you not to go with him. How could you do something like this? Ava tried to explain, but Ryan wasn't listening. His disappointment in her was too much to bear. "I can't believe you," he said coldly, turning away from her. Ava felt as though the world was crashing down around her. She ran out of the classroom, tears streaming down her face. Ava spent the rest of the day in a daze. She couldn't understand how things had gone so wrong. The whispers followed her wherever she went, and the cruelty of her classmates was unbearable. By the time she reached home, she was drenched from the rain, her heart broken. Her mother looked at her with concern. "Ava, what happened?" Ava didn't know how to explain. She shook her head and retreated to her room, overwhelmed by the weight of everything that had happened. The next day, the situation escalated. The principal called Ava into his office and informed her that she was being expelled from school. "This behavior is unacceptable," the principal said sternly. "We can't allow this to continue." Ava's world seemed to shatter. The people she thought she could trust had turned against her, and now she was being punished for something she didn't even do. Meanwhile, Ryan was filled with regret. He realized he had been too quick to believe the worst about Ava. He needed to make things right. Ryan's heart was heavy with guilt, and he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that he had let Ava down. He had been blinded by jealousy, and his failure to believe her had caused her unimaginable pain. After everything that had happened, he knew he had to do something. He couldn't stand to see Ava suffer because of a lie. He needed to make things right. Using his father's influence, Ryan began an investigation into the events surrounding Ava's humiliation. The more he dug, the clearer it became. John had planned everything. Ryan discovered that John had secretly drugged Ava at the party, taken the incriminating photos while she was unconscious, and then spread them around to ruin her reputation. Ryan was furious, not just at John, but at himself for not realizing sooner what had truly happened. Armed with the truth, Ryan didn't waste any more time. He marched straight to the principal's office, the evidence of John's betrayal and Sarah's role in spreading the rumors clutched in his hands. As he entered the office, the principal looked up at him, clearly surprised to see him so determined. "These are the people who set Ava up," Ryan said firmly, placing the folder with all the evidence on the principal's desk. "They tried to destroy her life for no reason." The principal stared at him, his brow furrowing in disbelief. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, his voice skeptical. Ryan's jaw tightened. "Yes, and I want them held accountable. They shouldn't get away with this." The principal remained silent for a moment, contemplating the severity of the situation. After a long pause, he nodded slowly, clearly realizing the gravity of Ryan's claims. "We'll take this seriously," he said. "Thank you for bringing it to our attention." Ryan's heart pounded as the principal assured him the investigation would take place. After the investigation was completed, Sarah, John, and their group of friends were expelled for their involvement in the plot against Ava. Once the decision was made, Ryan didn't waste any time. He immediately left the school and made his way to Ava's house. He could feel his nerves racing as he knocked on her door. When Ava opened it, she looked at him with a mix of surprise and guarded emotion. "Ava, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you from the start. I didn't know what to think, and I let my jealousy cloud my judgment. You hurt me. I trusted you, and you turned your back on me." Ryan felt his heart ache at her words. He stepped closer, his voice sincere. "I know, and I regret it more than you can imagine." With Ryan's unwavering support, Ava eventually returned to school. It wasn't easy for her. There were whispers in the halls and stares from students who had once ridiculed her. But things began to change. Some of her classmates, who had once been cruel, now began to approach her with apologies. Ava's strength and courage became evident to everyone around her, and she slowly rebuilt her reputation. And together, Ryan and Ava walked forward, stronger and more united than ever before.